Hello and welcome to the Anorak Review Show with your host, the Anorak. Well, I gotta say, it's good to have a nice summer weekend, or any day for that matter. Bright sun, clear skies with no clouds or anything. However, you still gotta expect it can be pretty hot and humid. It's almost like living inside a fireball or something. I just kind of thin in this case, as we're here to talk about Deep Purple. First established in 1968, Deep Purple started out as a very simple psychedelic rock band, not unlike, say, Pink Floyd for instance, but into the 70s and onwards, they started to adapt more of a hard rock heavy metal sound into their music, and eventually became known as part of the Holy Trinity, or rather unholy trilogy, of the classic 70s British hard rock and heavy metal alongside Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, which are also great classic rock bands. However, unlike those two, Deep Purple have managed to stick around and stay strong to this day, with recent albums such as Infinite and Whoosh demonstrating their retro rock genres while still keeping fresh with new ideas and little new details to their style. And apparently Guinness consider them one of, if not the loudest band of all time, thanks to a 72 concert at the Rainbow Theatre that managed to reach 117 decibels, which apparently was enough to knock out 3 audience members out of consciousness. Wow. Boy, am I... Part of me would be glad to be there, or not. But anyways, today I want to talk about one of their early albums, or at least one that was made during the transition from the psychedelic 60s roots into the modern 70s heavy metal band we know them today. And fittingly enough, this album happens to be called Fireball. And what better way to start this album than to start with its title track, beginning with the sound of an air conditioner, which is kind of fitting since, considering this weather, I'm in good need of an air conditioner. This song just kicks off right away into a classic, quick pace, almost proto-thrash funkish of a track. The lyrics themselves kind of sing about Ian Gillan's thoughts about a mysterious woman, comparing her to a racing fireball and Gemini and dancing ghosts and all that. And apparently, about that, they wanted to have the sound of a machine being switched on to start off the song, if not the whole album. So bassist Roger Glover hired their engineers to kind of find a machine to use, and they came across an air conditioner and decided to go with that, which is pretty cool if you ask me. I do like a bit, as someone who's into audio engineering myself, it's pretty cool they kind of record non-instrument sounds, and it's very interesting. Plus, midway through the song, we have what may seem like a very weird sounding guitar solo, but is actually a bass solo by, well, Roger Glover himself. And it almost sounds like a guitar in a way. It doesn't sound like the deep, plucky bass that some may know, like out of a disco song or something. It manages to trick your ears into thinking it's a guitar, and then that's soon followed up by a clashing yet sweet and fantastic organ solo by John Lord, and it just fills the soul with this pseudo orgasmic energy. Pseudo orgasmic? I don't know. Anyways, it fills the soul with this high energy. And if there was, I can't think of any other way to start an album than this title track. Next is No, No, No. And yes, 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 this is a very groovy and rebellious track, clocking at nearly 7 minutes. The lyrics speak of like this band being of our band kind of being scapegoated, kind of blamed for all the things going on in the world, both positive and negative, and whether they take it or not, they won't care. They're still gonna go on, still carry on their music and minding their own business. With them kind of almost being kind of annoyed about it, with lyrics like "I wanna be unborn again," flies crawling on their faces, heads are getting stronger, bodies getting weak, as if to imply that people are getting smart, but physically they're not being as much fit anymore, as if they're listening to too much of our music or whatnot. And in between the stanzas, we have we have a really rocking guitar solo by Richie Blackmore, and another groovy organ solo by John Lord. And if you got 7 minutes of time to waste, this song alone is worth the price. If you love prog metal, this almost seems like a good prototype to it. Then we have Demon's Eye, a more hoppier kind of rock song with lyrics about Ian Gillan kind of singing about this seductive yet possibly abusive woman who probably did something to Gillian in the past and is trying to find a way to beg for forgiveness and try to find a way into his life, but every time he's catching on and still rejecting her and kind of turning away, and yet still she's determined to get back with him. And in comments in the chorus that she is sly like a demon's eye. And much like with No No No, this too has a minute-long organ solo by the late great John Lord, and another guitar solo by Richie Blackmore, which is, and in both cases they're just as good and juicy as the previous song. Plus the drummings of the fantastic Ian Pace also kind of add this almost marching and thumping layer to the song, kind of emphasizing that hopping, bouncy riff that the guitar gives off. Now here's where things kind of get a bit interesting. While in the UK and the rest of Europe, Demon's Eye was part of the album, but when it was released in Japan, Canada, and in the US, it was replaced by another Deep Purple song called Strange Kind of Woman. While it's not exactly uncommon for albums to have their tracks rearranged or have one replaced or even omitted when released in different countries, there's not really much of a clear reason why there's such a case here. Maybe they thought, maybe since Strange Kind of Woman was released months earlier as a kind of standalone single, they thought they could keep its popularity going by releasing it as part of this upcoming album, or maybe it was slightly shorter than Demon's Eye and decided to just kind of replace it with that, or maybe the Americans just didn't want a song with the word demon in the title. Who knows? Anyways, as for Strange Kind of Woman, it is slightly similar to Demon's Eye. Both feature a subtle blues influence. Both feature some chilling guitar solos by Richie Blackmore. Both feature a bit of falsettos by Ian Gillan, and both are about a particular female figure. However, this one is more kind of about Ian Gillan kind of wanting to be with this particular woman rather than this woman wanting to be with Ian, and 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 how Ian tries to go through these efforts to try to be with her and kind of stick with her, and eventually she accepts him. They wed, and apparently it ends with a, I would call, a twist in a way, as Ian says the following lyrics of, I'm dreaming, I feel like screaming, I won my woman one day just before she died. And this kind of implies that, was this woman just a figment of his dreams, or maybe she's just, maybe he's literally dreaming, or maybe it's like figurative, like he thinks he's dreaming, and maybe as soon as she wed, she got killed or just dropped dead or died or something. Who knows? It is very ambiguous with that kind of ending. But anyways, whichever song you prefer, Demon's Eye or Strange Kind of Woman, is up for personal opinion. I don't mind either though. I kind of wish they were both on the album, since they're really both good rock songs and they're both just as worth a listen. The last song of side one, Anyone's Daughter, is probably one of the more unique of this album. Rather than being a very hard rock or a heavy metal or prog kind of style, this one's a bit more country influenced, more bluesier than the previous songs I mentioned. And this one kind of tells something more of an actual story about this hairy protagonist who's trying to get on with at least one of the ladies, but keeps getting arrested every time. For instance, he tries to get on with a farmer's daughter, and he gets caught and thrown in jail. Then when he tries to get on with a mayor's daughter, gets caught again and thrown in jail. And his luck kind of turns when he gets married into a rich family. However, he didn't really want to get into this rich family. However, as evident by the lyrics of, "Why do I always get the kind of girl I didn't want to get? Now I've married a rich man's daughter." So it's kind of ironic how he goes from going for the ones he wants but never getting them, to getting one that he ultimately didn't want. So I guess the moral of the story is, don't get don't get laid or something, or I don't know. Sometimes people marry because of money. Who knows? Musically, though, they do manage to replicate the typical style of like a country western song very well, with the guitars and Ian Gillan managing to kind of pull off a sort of like semi-redneckish southern accent, if I'm guessing it is. To any Americans out there watching this, did Ian kind of accomplish this right? Because I'm not the biggest expert on accents, as much as I like to speak some. Anyway, side two begins with the strange yet eerie shaking of a tambourine before blasting off into the next hard rock song, The Mule. Named after a character from the Foundations series written by Isaac Asimov, who many of you may know for iRobot, this one is sort of mostly instrumental. Within the first minute or so, we have some lyrics sung by Ian Gillan about, well, presumably the character of Mule, and how he's kind of being controlled by this character, this ominous Luciferian figure. And about, for the rest of the 3.5 minutes of the track, is pretty much where the guitar, bass, drums, and organs all just come together to form this grand and epic piece of just sweet, almost psychedelic rock and roll. And Ian Pace's drums, they 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 thump and clatter. It it rumbles the soul, and the guitars of Richie Blackmore and the organs of John Lord, they they're just as they're just as much awesome as they were in the previous songs. I would say it may kind of drag a bit for some, but if you're in the right mood and the right setting and the right just kind of the right mindset, you'll probably enjoy this song just as fine. And the way it climaxes with all those instruments kind of unraveling into a musical form of chaos and Armageddon until it all crashes down and rattles away into pretty much nothingness, kind of gives us a sensation of just delving into the abyss of insanity and madness. It is a whopper of a climax. Next is the next simply titled Fools. Did Starscream and Cobra Commander co-write this? Anyways, being the longest song of the album at about 8 minutes and about 20 seconds, this seems to be an attempt for the band to do another long track like Child in Time from the previous album, though not as long, but more subtle with its anti-war lyrics. It starts off with a very slow, quiet and soothing, yet still somewhat eerie and suspenseful tapping of cymbals and very quiet notes on the organ, very similar to Careful of That Axe Eugene by Pink Floyd. And just like that song, about 1 minute and 40 minutes in, it then blasts into another classic heavy metal groovy riff with Ian Gillan kind of singing about how people are easily manipulated into going into wars and conflicts, believing that they have good intentions when really it's all just for kind of selfish and sinister motivations. Then at about the 4 minute mark, the song kind of goes back into that calm yet very suspenseful tension feeling as it all kind of quiets out with nothing but the shaking of like a rattlestick or something, and the slowed down tempo of Pace's drums and cymbals and snares. And this kind of goes on for like 2.5 minutes, and it really helps you keep and whether it helps you calm down or it puts you on the edge, it's really kind of really very multi-sectional if you get what I mean. And then about at the 6 and 30 minute and the 6 minute and 30 second mark, it kind of picks up again back into that hard heavy guitar riffs, and Ian returning to kind of sing about how we're all fools and those who fight will eventually die in the flames, be it laughing or realizing that they're being fooled, or just still in kind of denial of it all, just believing in some kind of happy afterlife, even though in the end it's not as kind of optimistic as one may be led to believe. And then that brings us to the last song of the album, No One Came. This one's another typical heavy early 70s rock and roll kind of track. And however, this one's a bit more metatextual in terms of its lyrics, with Ian singing about this up and coming rock star who's trying to get out there and make it big. However, every time he either makes a fool of himself, or he doesn't get as much attention as he would have anticipated. with the recurring chorus of no one came around to say your music's very hot and funky. Who is this guy? And just like with anyone's daughter, Ian kind of plays around a bit with an accent or dialect. I think at least when he goes into the chorus and goes, "Your music's very funky," and just like say Fools, this one goes into another instrumental bit at the 2 minute mark where the guitars and organs really take over and give us a really kind of almost almost kind of a reveling kind of like a bit of an improv, if you get what I mean. And until like 4 minutes in, we're back to square one with Ian singing some more about this poor rock star who could never get a big break. And I think anyone, as someone who's also trying to develop music on my own, I can say this is something that could be relatable to many up and coming musicians, singers, and artists out there. And it's almost kind of humorous in that way, with with some kind of references to and references and comparisons to Robin Hood, as well as a bit of a reference of law for the rich and law for the poor, as if you don't have much money, you may not even go anywhere with your music career. And eventually it all kind of ends as the music all kind of rambles on and fades away, and it kind of closes out on the sounds of like backward sounding pianos. Personally, I would have preferred if Fools was kind of the ending track. I kind of wish Fools and No One Came kind of swapped around, so Fools would be the finale of the album. But that's just my preference. Anyways, Fireball by Deep Purple is actually not a bad album. It holds up very well even after 50 years. I can imagine how and why it left such a big influence on impact on so many young people who would go on to form big rock and roll careers, such as Metallic drummer Lars Ulrich. Ironically, though, most of the members of Deep Purple didn't really think much, at least positively, of this album, aside from Ian Gillan himself. I can I could see why. I guess some parts of the songs may drag on a bit for some, or something like Anyone's Door may seem a bit weird and out of place in an otherwise heavy metal album. But as is, I still enjoy it fine, and I still look forward to what Deep Purple will have in the near future. Next time, well, not entirely too sure this time round. We're already halfway through this year's summer anyway, so I think it's best we take take a listen at something a bit more fun and proggy. Maybe a Yes album.
Mistress. Yes, speaking. I've been searching for Megacar for some time. So far, I've managed to find no detection or sign of him. Yes, I've even searched the entire state of Minnesota. Yes, right. Don't worry about the warrior Jack. I hear he's in a permanent lockdown, along with his FDT, thanks to the Department of Metahuman Control. Of course. Need not to worry about the Story Watcher. I'll handle him, or rather them, for you, my mistress. It will be your time to attack again. As you wish. Yes. Over and out, my master. Just you keep waiting and waiting, Story Watcher. Soon, a war will come again, and you and I are merely pawns in this great game. This time, though, I will be the victor of us two, and I will prove to be the greater being than you will ever be.